What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're gonna take a look at the Polar Grit X. Alright guys, so this is the Polar Grit X, and it was sent over to me by Polar, but with no prior agreement, let's do a positive negative review. This is my own thoughts on this product. So let's take a look at it. This is Polar's Trail Runner, Ultra Runner, Hiker, very rugged watch that Polar came out with. If you guys know the Polar series, Polar has different levels of watches, starting from the Unite to the Ignite to the Vantage VM, the Vantage V, and then their two newest watches, the Grit X and the Vantage V2. And with like other watch companies, the more you pay, the more features you get. So with the Unite, you only get a few features, and then the V2 is the top of their line, and that has all the features. And this is right under the V2. There's a little bit of controversy about that because people wanted to have the same feature set as the V2, but Polar had to, have a reason why you would want to buy the V2 rather than this watch. So we're gonna take a look at all those features, and I'm gonna tell you what's the difference between the V2 and the Grit X. And then finally, I'm gonna tell you if this is a Goku Runner thumbs up, a Goku Runner thumbs meh, or Goku Runner's thumbs down. And if you guys don't know me, I am Jeremy, the Goku Runner. I do a lot of running films, running reviews, running talks. So if you like running, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. All right, guys, so let's take a look at this watch. This is the Polar Grit X. So you can see right here, it is a good looking watch. And I think it does look good on my wrist. It is bigger. It is 47 by 47 by 13. So you can see it on my wrist. I'm about 240 pounds, 5'11". And for me, I do like a bigger watch. And this one, it isn't huge, but it is bigger than other Polar watches. They do make it a little bit more rugged, which means it's gonna be a little bit bigger. And you can see right here, it's not too big, but I think it fits just right for me. And personally, I like the look of this watch. So this is the 47 by 47 millimeter by 13 millimeters, which is a little bit thicker than other watches, like I said, but it's not too thick. The watch is encased in a high strength steel case. So you can see over here, it's the high strength steel case. And then also the bezel is a stainless steel bezel. The display is 1.2 inches from here to here. There is a little bit of a chin around it. I do wish that the watch did not have that chin. A lot of watches do have that. So 1.2 inches works for me. This is a 240 by 240 resolution, which is equivalent to most Garmin watches. And this is a trans-reflective screen. So it will have color on it. Like you can see the battery level is green right there, but it's not gonna be the most vibrant display. It won't be OLED, and that's for sure, so that it can have a longer battery life. And it also does have a light sensor. I can't really see it, but supposedly it does have a light sensor. I don't know if you guys can see it. Depending on the brightness outside or inside, the screen will adjust to that so you can see it better. Definitely when you're outside, you can see this pretty good. The Polar Grit also has a backlight. For me, it's not the brightest backlight, especially since the background is black. It's kind of hard to see sometimes, but at night, it's okay. One of the issues that I did come up with whenever wearing any Polar watch really is that the sensitivity of the wrist flick isn't the best. So every once in a while, when you flip your wrist up, whenever you're running, it will come on sometimes, and sometimes whenever you flip it up, it won't. So you'll have to flip your wrist a few times to make sure that the light comes on so you can see the data on your screen. I do wish that it was more sensitive, and I wish that the light stayed on a little bit longer, because I think the light only stays on for about 6 seconds, which isn't a long time, especially when you're on your run. So the watch weighs in at 64 grams. It's not too heavy for me. I don't mind the weight at all, especially me liking bigger watches. On the run, it's not that bad. 64 grams isn't too heavy. All right, so let's take a look at the buttons over here. So you can see over here, it has 3 buttons on the right side. And this is basically gonna be the up button, the down button on the bottom, and then the select button over here too. And this will actually also start your run. So if you press that middle button and hold it down, you can start your run right away like that, and it'll start. This bottom left button is the back button, and also will get you to the main menu. And the top button is gonna be your light button. So this is gonna turn on your light. You can see the difference. All right, and then we go on to the back. This is where it has all of its heart rate monitors. Polar has been known for having a good heart rate monitor, and we'll talk about that later on. But this is the heart rate monitor. Supposedly these things will let the watch know whether it is on you or not. Otherwise, it'll turn off the heart rate monitor if it doesn't sense your body there. But these are the heart rate sensors over here, the red, the green, and the yellow. So yeah. And then if we look onto the back, this is a strap. It's a rubber strap, pretty stretchy pretty stretchy, as you can see over here. It does have the quick release over here, so you can just simply, slide that over to the right, and then it'll come off easily, and you can switch them out with different bands. This is going to be a universal band system, so you could definitely go on Amazon and buy the Amazon bands that fit your watch, or buy the Polar branded straps as well. One thing about this strap, this will actually hold on to a lot of the dirt, the salt, the soap scum. You'll definitely have to wash this band every once in a while to keep it looking good. So that's the strap. Overall, the strap is comfortable. I've slept with it and it's been fine. All right, so like I said, this bottom right button is the back button, and it also gets you to the main menu. So this is the main menu where you can start your training. So this is a touchscreen too, so you can just either use the buttons or use the touchscreen, and you can see the touchscreen isn't the greatest. It works well when it works, but sometimes it doesn't sense it at first, so I'm not a big fan of the touchscreen, so I'm glad that it does have buttons. So if we go down, this is the Serene screen. Serene is basically a meditation type of thing that Polar added into his watches. Basically, you just sit there and it'll tell you to breathe in for 5 seconds, hold, and then breathe out, and then hold, and then breathe in. So it's a good breathing exercise, especially if you get a little too stressed in your day. I've used it maybe 3 times in all the Polar watches that I've had. It's a nice feature, but not really something that you would buy the watch for. So if we look at the next screen, this is Strava Live Segments. Strava Live Segments is a cool feature, but you do have to have the premium Strava subscription. So if you don't have that, you can't use it. Basically what this will do is when you favorite a Strava Live segment on Strava, you can send that to your watch, and when you're out on your run and you hit a segment, the watch will notify you of that so that you could run your best time on that segment. And again, you do have to have Strava Premium for that. So if you don't have that, it's not gonna work. So it's a cool feature, but I don't have Strava Premium, so I don't use it. The next thing we have over here is gonna be fueling. This is Polar's FuelWise. FuelWise is a really neat feature, especially for you ultra marathoners or hikers that are out running or hiking for a long time. Basically what you do is set the time that you're gonna be out on your runs. Say we're gonna do an hour, 30-minute run right here, like we're doing it right here. We're gonna put the intensity, heart rate zone 3, which is gonna be heart rate zone 3, and then how many carbs you want per serving. So once you enter all that data in, you hit next, and it'll tell you for that workout, you need 40 grams. For this workout, it'll remind you 2 times that you need 20 grams of carbs twice during this session. And then you can also add a drink reminder. So if you do that, you could remind yourself to drink every 20-25 minutes. Because sometimes when you're out on a run, you forget that. I remember when I was pacing Tony for his ultra marathon, he was doing a 100-miler. I actually set a timer on my watch to remind him every 25-30 minutes to drink, and that really helped him to get to his 100-mile goal. This watch has that, so that is a nice feature. You do have to set this up prior to your run, so you have to set that up prior to your run, and once you do that, you can put use now, and then it'll add that FuelWise notification on the side, and you can start your run, and then it'll notify you every so often to eat and drink. So yeah, that's FuelWise. All right, so let's take a look at the next one. This is a timer. Timer speaks for itself. It's a timer. It has basically a stopwatch, a countdown timer, and that's it. So if we go to the next one, this is a fitness test. This is where it differentiates itself from the Vantage V2. Vantage V2 has more fitness tests. This one only has a Polar fitness test. This is the most basic one. This fitness test doesn't even have you work out. You basically just lay down and relax, and then it will measure your VO2 somehow. I'm not sure how it does it, but that's what it does. If you had the Polar Vantage V2, it would have the leg recovery test, which is basically something where you would jump up and down every morning to see how well your leg recovered. And then you would have your running and cycling performance test, where it will measure your zones, your VO2 max, giving you a test where you run for, 30 or 40 minutes on that. And to be honest, if you're not a performance test person, or you don't want to use leg recovery, or you just want to trust your own self to see how well you recovered, that's going to be something that's not useful for you. So if you don't want to spend the extra money to get a V2, the Polar Grid X is going to be all you need. So basically, that's the big difference between the Polar V2 and the Grid X, are those performance test metrics. The watch doesn't have a lot of different watch faces, so basically you choose digital or analog. This is, right now I'm on the digital one, so you can see it right there. This is the digital version of the watch face that you could have, or you could have the analog, and that's the analog. So not a lot of different watch faces that you could have on this watch. If you are into having custom watch faces, this definitely won't be the watch for you. And then the next thing we have to talk about over here on the settings is phone notifications, because you do get phone notifications. So right here, if you want phone notifications, they are very minimal. It's just basically basic notifications. So it'll get your text messages from WhatsApp or your messages. It'll tell you all the notifications on your phones. It'll tell you maybe too many notifications. Like if you are on a phone call and you answer the phone, your wrist won't stop buzzing until you actually turn it off. Like if you answer the phone, your wrist will keep on buzzing until you manually press the button to turn off that buzzing, or it will buzz like crazy, which I found super annoying. Also alerts you whenever you change your music or whenever you play a new YouTube video. It'll alert you for everything that your phone does. For me, I turned off phone notifications. It was just too annoying for me to have those notifications on because I didn't need to know everything. And you can set it up so it doesn't notify you of every little thing on the phone, but I didn't want to mess with that. I just turned it off myself. So phone notifications or smart features on this watch is not gonna be the greatest. This is strictly more of a sports watch. So let's take a look at the screens that it has. So this is the first screen. This is basically, so it'll just tell you your time and then it'll tell you the date. And then if you go to the next screen, this is your activity screen. It'll tell you your steps for the day and how long you've been active. So that's that screen. All right, so next screen that we have is your Training Load Pro. This is gonna tell you how well you're training. It takes into factor the mileage you're doing, how well you're sleeping, how well you're recovering, all that, and it will tell you if you're working out too much. Right now it's saying that I'm detraining. It's saying that I should do a little bit more. I do switch out watches, so I don't use this watch all the time. So I have been training and this is a new week. So right now it's telling me that I'm detraining. That's a nice little feature that it will let you know that you should work out a little more. Or maybe if you are working out too much, it'll tell you that you're overreaching and you should take it easy. So that's a nice little thing. The next screen that we have is the heart rate screen. So basically it'll tell you your current heart rate. Clearly that's not mine, it is on the table, but you can see your heart rate data, throughout the day over here. And then the next screen that we have is your workout histories. So this will tell you all the workouts that you did the last couple of days. So you can see this is what I've been doing the last couple of days right here. And you can see all your stats also. So that's the training history. The next screen that we have is your nightly recharge. So this does have sleep metrics. Basically, you put it on, and you have to wear it for more than 4 days for it to have accurate results. And it'll tell you how much you move through the night. So I didn't wear this last night because I'm not actually a big fan of sleep tracking. I do have sleep apnea. I do wear a CPAP at night. So I generally know when I sleep bad or I sleep good. I really don't need an app to tell me if I'm sleeping well or sleeping bad. I just know by feel how it is. But this is a feature that people do like, and while it's not for me, maybe this is something that you're gonna be looking at, sleep metrics on your watch. All right, so the next thing that we have is FitSpark. This is something that I really like about Polar. Polar has FitSpark from all their lower end watches all the way up to the higher end watches. And this is a nice little feature. It's basically a personal trainer on your watch. It will take into factor how much you slept, how much you're working out, and then it'll provide you a workout of the day. So like for me right now, what it has for me, if we click on that, it wants me to do strength training. It's seen that I've been running a lot. It wants me to do strength training. So you can see right here, it has different types of things you could choose from. You could choose strength training, cardio, supportive, or my program workout, which I did put a training program on here. And you can see right there, if I do the strength training workout, it'll actually tell me exactly what to do. So what I'm gonna do is do each exercise for 40 seconds and rest for 1 full minute. It'll show me with stick figures what I should be doing. So right here, it wants me to march for 1 minute, do the Atlas twist over here, ab crunches, back extensions. Looks like he's doing a one-handed push-up there. There's the back extension. And then finally gonna be these back extensions. So actually that was a push-up with rotation and then back extensions over here. So nice little feature. It'll give you different workouts depending on how well you recovered and the training that you're doing currently. All right, then the next thing that it has is weather. This is something new that came with the Grit X and the Vantage V2 is weather. So this will tell you your weather up to 3 days. It'll give you a forecast. So over here, you'll see all the weather for the next couple of days. It's gonna get cooler for me. So yeah, I like that feature also. And then that's gonna be it. All right, so the next thing we have to look at is the Polar app. So if we look at the Polar app, this is something else that I really like in the Polar ecosystem is the Polar app. At first, I wasn't a huge fan of it, but the more I use it, the more I got to like it a little bit more. So here's the Polar app right here. And you can see in order to change a lot of the settings on your watch, you have to do it through the app. So if we go to the sports profiles, let's go ahead and look at all the sports profiles that it has. Backcountry skiing, ballet, ballroom, football, gymnastics, handball, Les Mills, all those Les Mills that you could do in the gym, mobility, Nordic walking, pool swimming, skating, a ton of different sports profiles that you could use on the app. So in order to change the settings on your watch, you do have to go to the running one. So let's go to the running, either edit it. And over here is where you could put an automatic lap. Usually it is set to kilometers, so you do have to change that to 1 mile. And then it does have training sounds. So I do like the fact that the Polar Grit has beeps. I think from Vantage series up, they all have beeping, so you can set it to whatever level you want it. And then you can set your zones over here too. So there's that. All right, so as far as the metrics and how accurate it was, I used the analyzer from DC Rainmaker, and I compared my data from the Grit X to the Coros Vertex watch with a heart rate monitor. So the heart data is gonna be more accurate coming from a chest heart rate monitor for sure. So over here, you can see that the watch does test for power, and you can see that it's different powers, right? So I guess the power metrics aren't standardized between watches. So the Polar does read higher power than the Coros measured, but if you look at them, they're pretty much the same. So that they will raise at the same level. I basically did a walk run over here. And then if we look at the heart rate over here, the Polar had a little bit more jumps than my chest heart rate monitor. You can see at the beginning, it's definitely a little bit higher, and it took a little bit to settle down, but then it also jumped up a little bit, but it generally stayed equal to my chest heart rate monitor, but with a little bit more spiking. So while that is an issue, I think that if you do want accurate heart rate data, you will have to get a chest heart rate monitor. It's just the location of where your watch is, the optical heart rate monitor. It's not the best. This is not a fatty area. So the accuracy of your heart rate won't be that great, especially in that area. So if you do want more accurate heart rate data, definitely get a chest heart rate monitor or optical heart rate monitor that goes on your forearm or upper arm. So you can see the GPS data. It's pretty accurate. I would say my Polar was more accurate than the Coros data. So you see over here, the Coros seemed to have strayed a little bit more. Polar was more accurate in GPS, so I would trust the Polar rather than the Coros. Let's take a look at the running data fields that you see. So over here, if we look at the running data fields, you can see that at the top part, it has my heart rate. Over here, it has my distance, and it has my pace and my duration. And of course, you can change this up on the app, like I said earlier. And then if you go to the next one, this is gonna be your power over here. Next screen is gonna show your elevation. And this also does have a feature called Hill Splitter, where basically it will tell you what your effort is going up a hill or how much effort you should be putting going up a hill and down a hill. So I don't have a lot of hills here in Texas, so I don't use that feature very much, but it does have Hill Splitter. You might wanna go on the Polar website to check out what exactly that is. I don't use that feature too much. The next thing, you will have your heart rate data over here, where I'll tell you what zone you are. The good thing about Polar Watch is that it has zone lock. So basically, if you press the side button over here for a couple seconds, it will zone lock you into a zone where you're currently at. So right now, I'm at a low zone. So if you go above the heart rate zone, it'll beep at you, or if you go below the heart rate zone, it'll beep at you again. So you'll know whenever you're out of your zone and to stay in your zone when you're there. I like this feature, especially if you are heart rate training. Very useful for me, and I use this feature quite often. And then the next thing you'll see is gonna be your distance and pace. And it'll tell you if you're flat. Texas is always flat. And it's never ever going up anywhere, especially where I live. And yeah, that's basically all the data that it's gonna tell you. All right, the next thing we're gonna talk about is the battery life on this Polar Grit X. It will last you 40 hours on GPS mode, but only 7 days on standby mode. So you will have to charge this thing every week. Not the greatest battery life on standby mode. I don't know how we can get 40 hours on GPS mode, but only 7 days on standby mode. Other watches nowadays have about 20 to 30 day standby mode. So I do wish that it was longer, but that's what it is. And then finally, we to talk about the price of this Polar Grit X watch. This comes in at $429, which is gonna be right at the price where it should be for a watch like this. This is the Polar Grit X. It's gonna be a higher end watch similar to the Vantage V2. If you want the premium watches from a lot of companies, you're gonna have to pay some money. So $429, it's right at the price where it should be for this type of watch. All right, guys, so that is the Polar Grit X. So let's go ahead and talk about the pros and cons of this watch. So for the pros, it's going to be that 40-hour battery life on GPS mode. That's a long time. That's going to last you for any ultra marathon that you're going to want to do. 40 hours is great. Another great thing about this watch are the beeps. I like a watch that beeps. Sometimes whenever you're wearing a watch and that vibration hits you, you don't feel it. So a watch that beeps is definitely one that I like. Finally, for the third pro is gonna be FitSpark. FitSpark is a great feature for all Polar watches. I like FitSpark, your own personal trainer that will give you a workout depending on how well you're rested and the workouts that you're doing. All right, so for my cons of the Grit X is gonna be notifications. I do not like the notifications on this watch. It buzzes at you way too much. If you have them on, you're gonna wanna turn them off. You can't pick which apps you want to have on or off, but at that point, what's the point of having notifications at all? It's really annoying, especially for calls. Like if you're getting a call and you have to manually turn off the buzzing on your watch after you answer the call, something that I really dislike about those notifications. So if you want this watch, don't get it for the smartwatch features. Get it because it is a sports watch. The next con about this watch is that I wish it had more customizations. Like I wish you could keep the backlight on longer. It only lasts for maybe 5 seconds. If it lasted longer for 10 seconds, or if you could increase the sensitivity of when it turns on like a Garmin watch, I would like that more. If they allowed us to customize those features, I would like this watch a little bit more. And then the last con is the battery life on standby. It's only 7 days. I took this watch out for the weekend and I took 2 watches out. My other watch had about 20 days standby. This only has 7 days standby. And because this watch wasn't charged all the way, after 3 days, this watch died on me. So 7 days isn't the longest amount of standby time. I wish it was longer. All right, so who is this watch for? This watch is gonna be for someone who loves Polar watches and doesn't want to spend the moolah for the Polar Vantage V2. The Polar Vantage V2 is a great watch, but if you don't want all those performance features, the music controls, which is pretty much useless, I think this watch is gonna be a better value for you. You're gonna save some money if you don't need all those extra features, and for me, I don't need them, so the Polar Grit X is something that I would buy for sure. All right, guys, so what am I gonna give this watch? I'm gonna give this watch the Goku Runner thumbs up. I do like this watch. I do wish that it did have a longer standby time, but other than that, all the other features are great. That FitSpark is something that I really enjoy in the Polar ecosystem. If you haven't used it, it's something that you really should try. That 40-hour battery life is great, especially for any ultra marathon or trail runner out there. So that's why it gets a Goku Runner thumbs up. I do wish that Polar would upgrade the features on this to have the Polar Vantage V2 features, but I do understand why they don't, because they do want to have some differentiation from the Polar Grit X to the Polar V2, so that's why it doesn't have those features, but I wish it did. All right, guys, so that's gonna be the review of this Polar Grit X. Let me know what you think about this watch. Would you buy it? And if you guys want to, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.